What's on, guys? J-Hoyd back with you. Today, welcome back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. We are back here on Shoot House, and we're absolutely slaying out today. But as you can tell by the title, we're talking about him. OpTic Gaming, aka OpTic Texas, is rumored to be making roster changes. Now, you might be asking why that's going to be due to the picture that is on your screen now. Is it the Fast and the Furious when Paul Walker died and they did the whole like veering off thing? Obviously, you guys can see it on your screen. But it was okay. So let's go back up a little bit. So start of this season, Illey and Dashy were rumored to be dropped from OpTic Texas. They were rumored to get like Attach or Cammy or Pred, or there's a whole bunch of names floating around. And they ended up sticking together, which was good because like they didn't really get a full chance last year. And right, we went over that and went through all the scenarios and everything about what OpTic could have been with their full roster. And then going into this year, Scump last year, right, he announced his retirement, or his retirement after the year, I should say. And then here we are, right, after the first event, they, lost a very weirdly set up bracket or tournament where it's like, it was kind of pool play, but like it wasn't. And then we had some challengers teams there, but then it just didn't really make sense, too much. So a weird event plus first event, who knows? Like it's a hard event to determine much of anything. And I'm not going to recap the event, and I should have, and I really need to get back into creating Call of Duty content again. But anyway, so Dashy tweets this out, and this was December 21st, so it's currently the 23rd as I'm recording this. You guys will probably see it, Christmas Eve, Christmas, maybe the day after, depending on what I want to put up, in the meantime, or depending on what actually happens with, this whole situation. But this kind of assumes, and also I should mention, Dashy took OpTic out of all of his stuff. So we're all assuming that given what is presented to us, that Dashy has been dropped. Now, that's the only thing that we really have noticed, is that Dashy was the one saying that. Now, there's a lot of people rumoring that illey is going to be gone too. But again, we have to figure out, is this just going to be Dashy and then hope, if you just bring in one player and, try to change that role up, change Dashy up a little bit, then that'll help. But here's the thing. So after looking at the tweet and looking at, the rumors and everything going on, there's two kind of big names that have been floating around. And then it's arcitys and Pred. Now let's start with arcitys. So arcitys just signed a 3-year contract for the LA Guerrillas. Right? He left FaZe. They basically traded him for Slasher, essentially. So Slasher's now on FaZe. arcitys now on LA Guerrillas. The buyout there is probably going to be pretty heavy. Obviously, OpTic have one of the deepest pockets in the entire league. Like we already know that. So money's not going to be the option. It's, does LAG want to do that? Because Neptune already kind of tweeted out that he's a free agent or got dropped from the starting roster or something. Spark kind of did the same thing. And then if arcitys is in question, and then you have their their academy roster rumored to be just like swapping places, but then arcitys, Hook, Neptune, and Spark, they're not going to want to sit on the bench. Especially arcitys and Hook, they're not going to sit on the bench. They need to go somewhere and play. And Hook doesn't make sense coming to the OpTic roster because he's a submachine gun, and they already have Scump and Shotzzy, and I don't feel like they're going to run 3 subs, especially given how AR heavy this game is. arcitys definitely could be an option. I know they had him before on the Chicago Huntsman. Do they bring him back? I mean, do they make a 1-for-1 trade? I don't know what type of situation would be there, or if it's just buyout, and then they just sign with you. I don't know how all that. I don't know how the contracts work. But that would be a main AR for a main AR. Both players that have ran flexes in the past have kind of moved to the main AR role. But here's the thing. Does arcitys on this team make it better? Yes, I guess. Like, I don't know how much you really want to put into that. But then, okay, if it's just Dashie, then why is the rumors of illey floating around? Because that's both of their ARs, right? So you're not gonna find many available ARs right now, especially given how like crazy the rostermania was already like before the season, and now we're in not mid-season, but I guess we're like the start of the season-ish area. That it's gonna be very difficult to find players. We're gonna show up a spreadsheet here in a second, and I've had this for a while actually, of all the teams everywhere. So we'll take a break from the gameplay. Let's head over to the spreadsheet, and I'll show you guys some potential rosters. So here we are. I don't know if I've actually ever showed this, but we have every single one of the CDL teams up here at the top, right? Starting from left to right, Atlanta FaZe, you guys can see it all the way to Toronto Ultra. We have a list of free agent / challenger players with some random players that kind of came up through free agency, as well as some coaches. And let's just look at OpTic Texas right here, right in the green where my cursor is. You have Scump, shotzzy, illey, Dash. We know the roster. So who could be available, right? Slasher just signed in FaZe. FaZe almost guaranteed will not give up. Definitely selling him or Slasher. Awakening Methods from Boston doesn't seem likely. Bracken Major Maniac wouldn't be an upgrade at all. Spart is already rumored to be dropped from this team, but I don't feel like he'd be good enough to be on OpTic. arcitys definitely is a possibility, so leave that in the possibilities. Then you have London, who they just lost to, which, you know, kind of Paul X and Nasty kind of ran flex last year, so some of these roles might be a little bit off. So if you guys know the actual roles of some of these players, let me know, because I'd obviously like to update this and get a better understanding from, especially from some of the players I don't actually recognize or you know, watch too often, which I think Paul X is the flex for this team and Nasty's in their sub. But even then, this team actually looked pretty good, but they're also rumored to make a change for Paul X and bring in Scraps, I believe it is. LA Thieves aren't going to change because Draza, honestly, I don't think is as good as people think he is. Octane's not going to leave that roster. Cammy Attached from Minnesota, I don't feel like they're going to want to do anything with that, especially given what happened earlier with them. Subliner is just one last event, so they're not going to change. Obviously, OpTic. Vegas with Prolu and Clayster. I mean, Clayster would be definitely an interesting option. I don't think it's going to happen. Prolu, I mean, he played with them last year. Would he come back to this team? Would that be a good fit? I don't know. That's a very hard question to answer. Sib and Accuracy. I mean, Sib could definitely be an interesting option. But again, we need some kind of leaders in this. Accuracy, I think I actually spelled that wrong. I'm sorry if I did. I don't really know how. I'm not very good at spelling. Accuracy, though, I don't know if that'd really be an upgrade. Scrappy and Insight, they're not going to do anything with either of those two. So down to a very select few of players that are currently starting that could be available. Now let's go with the other rumor. You know, forget about the AR for a second. There's been a huge rumor of Pred to OpTic. Now he is he's in the last year of his contract this year, and everyone seems to think that this offseason, after Scump officially retires, that OpTic is gonna go sign Pred, and that him and shotzzy and whoever else is on the team at the time will be the new roster. You know, if that's going to happen this offseason, after, this year, that's a different story, right? Obviously, he's not going to come in and replace Scump or shotzzy. But what do we do? Like, if Dashie is the one gone off this roster, who do we have? Who would be the I don't want to say easiest option, because you're going to spend money to get someone that's worth it. Scump is not going to let OpTic or coaching staff, that team pick up a nobody or a random challengers player. You're going to need to spend some money or sign a free agent, which is our next question. So you scroll down here, not scroll down, but you look down here to all the free agents. Some of them I have as SMGs or flexes or some of their area ARs. But I actually pulled a couple of names aside, as you may see right above my head here. So Gizmo from London last year showed a lot of promise, and when he left London, it definitely affected them a lot. Now here's the thing, I don't actually know what role he plays, so that's a big question mark. Then we move over to the next column here. We have Gunless and Pristini. Both players have been on, I guess it was Chicago at the time, but still, let's just say OpTic for, just for this. So both players, I think, would definitely be able to come in and be, what they could be looking for. Pristini, though, however, is usually a more of an SMG player, although can run a flex. So I think he'd be more of a, if you needed an SMG in that third AR role, but we're not 5v5 anymore. And I don't really know what he's even up to anymore. Gunless, on the other hand, has always been an AR, but could run a sub. So that would be a much more likely option to fill in for either Dashie or illey, if illey does go too. Then, honestly, Wuskins, I don't know why I pulled him over here, but he's one of those players that definitely has been at the top and could be an option. And our last player is General, who they had last year as a sub. Came in when illey went out, but didn't really fit in the flex, couldn't really run a sub, but he was mainly just an AR. Now, if it's just Dashie, General, they could bring in the familiar face and see how that all works. So, Wuskin, as much as that could be an option, I don't think that's going to happen. Pristini, if it was for, let's just say shotzzy was out an injury or something, and you need an SMG that could run a third AR, that could be an option. But I don't feel like that's going to happen. And then we're down to 3. This is just free agents that I think could be an option. Gizmo, again, we talked about him. Gunless, we talked about him. In general, out of those 3, the most likely is probably Gunless. But what does OpTic do if they don't grab someone from a starting roster or even a substitute bench, which actually we haven't even gotten to yet. So let's go into that. So let's start with FaZe, right? Not only do I not think they're going to make a deal with FaZe ever, but you have Classic. He's an SMG, not really going to fit what we're looking for. Beans, I don't really know too much about him, but he's a European player that just kind of signed with Boston this year. I don't feel like he'd be a good fit there. Dave Patty is a very slow AR. Don't feel like that's going to happen. You have the entirety of the LAG Academy roster, mainly looking at Assault and Diamond Con. Would this be much of an upgrade over, a General or a Gunless? I don't know. Scraps is already rumored to be going into the London team for, I think it's Paul X. Actually, while I'm thinking about this, let me fix this. So Paul X has been their main flex. And then Nasty's been their SMG. LA Thieves don't actually have a substitute, so we'll kind of forget about them for a second. The Rocker Academy, we have Real, Fame, GodRx, and Pander. Is GodRx good enough to be there? I mean, he looked like the best player in, what was it, World War II or something? Or whatever game he actually was decent in and then fell off the face of the earth. Wardy, I don't really know too much about. Don't know what role he plays. OpTic, the other thing we haven't mentioned, they don't even have a substitute. So they don't even have a quick option that you could try to test out while you try to evaluate what you want to do. Vegas doesn't have a substitute either. Neither does Seattle. Hixie, I don't know too much about him as a player, so I'm not exactly sure what he brings to the table. So looking at all of these rosters, if, let's just say, Scump, shotzzy, and illey are sticking together as a team of 3 on OpTic, and then Dashie, I can obviously fix this, but let's just say Dashie is out. Who do you fill in this spot? That's the big question. And a lot of people are saying arcitys, but again, what are you going to have to give up to get him? That's going to be a lot of money, and if it's not that, I don't know if trades are allowed, but then do you just swap him for Dashie? Right? Because Dashie has skill. He can shoot straight. He can put up stats. But it's all been out of game, if you want to call it work ethic, attitude, whatever it may be, there's always been something going on with Dashie, right? It's always been out of the game stuff, right? Being late, being, work ethic, being a teammate and not just an individual. So he has all the skill in the world, but that only gets you so far. So who do you guys see? And this is a question for you guys. Who do you see replacing Dashie on this roster if he is officially dropped? It's a very big question. We have a couple of free agents that, could be a possibility. But other than those three, it might be arcitys. But other than that, it's going to be a very hard situation. Because like I mentioned earlier, they're not going to get some unproven nobody. They're going to have to get somebody to fill the shoes and kind of meet the expectations that are set on OpTic. Like, plain and simple, you need someone to win now. But that's going to be it for today's video. Lots of options there for OpTic. What do they end up doing in the end? We'll have to wait and see. But like I said, that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below. If you haven't yet, or if you're brand new here, make sure to subscribe. Turn those post notifications on so you never miss an upload. And don't forget, you can always change your mind later. But with all that being said, guys, we'll see you in the next one.